Hello, everyone. Hope we're doing well, and I hope we enjoyed that musical flow. Visuals, I've shared about this, many times before. I mean, I don't have to share anything about the power of music, but for myself in using the visuals, particular areas. This was a video on Montana, which is pretty close to the Rockies. We can, on a certain level, travel within our own being, travel through the earth just through the visuals as well. It's kind of similar to when we watch like a movie or a TV show and we get a certain energy or encryption from it. That could be, a particular geography that we're connecting to. That could be a particular time period, both past and future. That could be, a particular archetype or energy of, the storyline and how that activates you on a particular level. All of these are ways in which we get to traverse, our own template. Our template or anatomy would be another term for it. We often think of our anatomy as just what we see in these bodies. But if we understand our bodies to be a 15-dimensional body and a body that is a fractal of the anatomy of all of creation or God source as well, then we see that traversing what we view to be external, like the geography of the earth or into the solar system or universe or whatever, we're actually traversing our own anatomy, because all of creation, all of our experience, everything perceivable is an aspect of our template or anatomy. So in connecting to even just YouTube videos or visuals on, a video format, you're still able to connect to the energies of those spaces. And that because we can connect to spaces by physically going there within an expansion of consciousness, or going there by watching something. All of them are quite similar actually in how we can respond and engage within our energy. So of course it's nice to physically go to places, but if that's not possible or if that's not desired, there's other ways in which we can connect, and it can be, very meditative and healing, obviously. And this is why I think, a lot of these kind of nature videos and drone videos are actually so popular on YouTube and these things, and especially when it's coupled with music as we did today. So hopefully that was relaxing and brought some peace. And so we're going to explore more of this piece, hopefully through, some focused inquiry and some focused, scanning and moving into our anatomy that's right here, and covering, a few topics on related subjects. And specifically one of the core elements before we get into this meditation is coming to see and understand that whatever is the running currents within this anatomy here, just this physical anatomy, running currents meaning the frequency emanation of, whether it's a joyfulness or compassion or a peacefulness or a patience, all of these terms elicit a certain energy expression, a certain emanation. The more in which that is viscerally felt and viscerally the core of the current that's running through this body, not moving through the stagnation of emotional block or apparent, illusionary thought forms that we're holding, or ideas about things that are causing pain and suffering. If those are the predominant currents, then our life experience, or at least what is perceivable within the apparent external world or interactions of relationship, that's going to be quite challenging. And it's going to bring up a lot of challenging situations, whereas when these emanations of compassion and joyfulness and peacefulness and the simple patience of the moment, the simple peace of the moment, when this is the predominant flowing current through the body and through our anatomy, then naturally all of our relations also become an emanation of this and an expression and an interaction of this. And so in this process of inquiry that we're about to get into, this meditation, we're moving through our anatomy and our body to essentially come to see through all of the illusions of stagnation, emotional stagnation, mental stagnation, physical stagnation, and the many forms of that in which elicits suffering. Because we could say that stagnation at the core is really the root of the majority, if not all, of suffering. Because if we go to a simple Buddhist teaching that says everything is perpetual change, if this is a reality, meaning this is a true statement, this is factual about existence and reality, then we could say that anything that's not that, meaning anything that is stagnant and not in perpetual change, is ultimately untrue or false and inevitably going to bring suffering or resistance. Right? It's like if we hold on to a false idea about life, we experience resistance because it's false, and reality is attempting to reveal to us that it's false, and to remind us that it's false. And it reminds us in the most practical way, in the form of resistance that we feel within our being and body. And it's the same if we observe someone treating a child abusively, or an animal, or nature, or anything, in some sort of unrighteous way. We immediately feel that resistance in the body. And so that's one thing also to keep in context, that just because we feel resistance doesn't mean there's something wrong with us or something we're perceiving wrongly. Like, for instance, if we feel resistance from someone treating someone unrighteously in our view, say we see it on the street or in a relationship or interaction, well, of course, the resistance we feel, there's not an issue with why we're feeling that. The issue is what we're observing and what is happening within this co-created moment. So we have to stay very grounded in this, because that can turn into a very dangerous viewpoint if we're not keeping things in check, right? In terms of, it's like in the New Age movement, people are all about not wanting to feel guilt and shame, but it's like, well, of course you're going to feel guilt and shame if you've acted irregularly, right? If you've acted unrighteously, you're going to feel guilt and shame. It's not just because of some trauma from your past. I mean, on some level it is, and on another level, it's manifesting now as an action that is unrighteous or misaligned, and must be changed for that guilt or shame to be released. You don't need to go off and do some special meditation to release it. You actually have to just change the practical actions that are unfolding, which may require some meditation to become aware of it. But we can see, again, how we can keep things very practical in this sense. So to keep it as practical as possible, we'll just engage a little bit of breath and presence and coming to ourselves. So I would ask if you want to get comfortable, whether seated or lying down, if you want to engage this with us, and we can close the eyes and just bring the attention right here, right as we are, right in the middle point between inside and outside. That's an interesting one. Often we're going to point the attention inwards, but inwards is on some level just as illusionary as outwards. And so is the middle. There's a great quote by Bodhidharma, founder of the Zen tradition, that says, there is no inside, outside, or middle. And so where does that leave us? This is an interesting inquiry that we can come to rest in just here, as we are. Naturally, as we come to rest here, we may first feel into more strongly the physical body. There may be tension somewhere in the physical body. We may feel we need to align our physical body in a more comfortable position. And part of the way we can really get into the detail of the physical body is just scanning it, starting at the top of the head, and we can kind of feel like a wave of gentle compassion coming down through the body, like it's seeping down through our brain, down through behind the eyes. Often there's tension behind the eyes, or into the cheekbones, into the temples, and down into the jaw, the back of the neck. These are all areas where sometimes we hold tension. And we're just sending this wave of compassion down through the nervous system, coming down into the spine, through the back of the neck, down through the traps, through the shoulders, and down through the arms as we also come through the spine simultaneously. So it's just kind of a wave sinking down through the whole body. You can feel it moving down through the fascia and the muscles, the bones, the organs, the blood, the nervous system as it moves down through the torso and through the arms simultaneously. You can align the spine if we need to, or just reposition the body, rolling the shoulder blades back, just relaxing everything. And drop deeper down towards the lower back and the pelvic area. Obviously, there's often a lot of tension here. We can release the tension in the PC muscle. Any tension in the hips. We'll feel that wave just seeping down through the body, down through the knees, through the shins, all the way down through the ankles and into the feet. And so there may be a deeper lightness that is felt here. Naturally, as you move into the deeper layers of the body, thoughts and feeling sensations are also felt sensations within the physical body. Sometimes thoughts carry a particular weight to them. You actually feel that in your head somewhere. Often they're connected to, a fluttering or charge of emotion or sensation that usually will be felt somewhere in the torso. So there may be particular subjects that are circulating, particular thought forms or emotions that are lingering from a prior moment. So we can give some space where it's almost as if you feel the expansion of that awareness and that container in which all these sensations and thoughts are kind of circulating within, and feel into that spaciousness more so. So these thoughts and feelings can be exactly as they are. They don't need to change. We don't need to do anything with them. We don't need to push them away. They all can just naturally be there, naturally arise, naturally fall. Just like clouds in the sky, there's nothing really to them. And just if you were to zoom in or fly through a cloud, it would actually be spacious. From the outside, it looks solid, but then you fly through the cloud like through a plane, and you see that the cloud is actually spacious, it's translucent. And in the same way, these thoughts and feelings are spacious. There's no solidity to them, although from a distant viewpoint, it may feel that way. So you may feel called into a particular region of the body. Maybe there's a particular sensation, particular thought form, or particular emotion or charge that you would like to investigate. And we can do so by piercingly focusing upon that sensation exactly where it is in the physical body or in the etheric body, the body that we can perceive here. And as you investigate that, really what's happening is we're getting so detailed in our viewing and our looking at this particular sensation. So the sensation that may be viewed in a general area of the body, or as like a little ball that you feel somewhere in your stomach or your heart or your throat or something of the sort. When we zoom into it, we actually see that it's a bunch of micro sensations, and there's actually spaciousness between these micro sensations. And as we continue to zoom in and feel into all these little micro sensations, we continue to reveal how much spaciousness is actually there. So from the outside, it looked like a solid charge or ball or, something uncomfortable. But when you zoom into it, all of these sensations of uncomfortable feeling or charge actually start to fill up the whole view of your perception, but there's all this spaciousness in between. And we can keep repeating this like a fractal, where we keep investigating every micro sensation of a particular region of the body where we are called into. Some of us, there may be nothing really to investigate. You may really be able to perceive this expanded spaciousness. And so wherever we are, whether we're investigating something in particular, or we feel like we are just in this boundless space of spaciousness or somewhere in between, we can begin to breathe in through the nose if we feel it. Some of us may not even need to breathe in to actually experience this, but as we're breathing in, it's like we're breathing in through this spaciousness throughout the entirety of the anatomy, almost like our entire anatomy is translucent in a certain way, where it's a slow inhale through the nose and we're breathing through this entire anatomy and the spaciousness between all of the cells. And then as we exhale, we're releasing through it. It's almost like if wind could pass through the body. And likewise, of course, the wind or this breath, this energy can pass through any charged emotion, thought, feeling, sensation, perception, belief, idea, etc. And we can continue in that rhythm where we're either controlling the breath or just feeling this natural oscillation, where it's almost like we feel these rainbow currents of energy that are passing through everything. Everything is filled with this spaciousness. So anything that's perceived as solid, if we actually investigate, we can see that this natural flowing current of energy can move through it, just like it's translucent. So it's like filaments of diamond light, like a pale gold, pale silver, and a pastel rainbow. All of these colors part of this diamond light that we can naturally breathe through the body. And as we come to see with more authenticity, we'll see actually that the breath is not even really what's doing this. It's doing it on its own. The breath is just the animation of this movement of energy. But the breath, a very slow breath, a very gentle, compassionate breath, can create more of a visceral experience of this. And so you can spend some time just concentrating on that. So this process is both a surrendering or relaxation, almost like a doing nothing, where as you continue just to rest into all of the layers of self, you feel less and less of a doing of anything in particular. It's just a relaxing into this boundless spaciousness. And at the same time, the focus upon any particular area of the body, any particular sensation, topic, or charge, the movement of the breath, the visualization or connection to the natural currents running through the energy. This is also requiring the utmost concentration and focus. So it's a simultaneous process that has phases and may, at a certain time, require more of one than the other, or will naturally pull you more into one than the other. But it's neither exclusively a doing nothing or complete surrender, nor a absolute focus and control, control of the breath or control of attention or all of these things. It's neither of them exclusively. And so you can start to feel into almost like a middle point where you feel completely relaxed and surrendered into being, into self, into this natural flowing current and river, as there may also be a particular attention or concentration or focus. And what we'll find is that often the concentration and focus in which gives way for a natural being or a doing of nothing and effortlessness. And so here within the trusting of ourself and the natural flows within ourself, we're guided and protected within our own being, within the embodiment of our higher nature, our higher self, our true self. This is what's always guiding. And of course, when we're in this surrendered focus and attention, the listening and the easeful receptivity of the natural movements of action, direction, thought, word, anything we'd like to move into or express or do in our moment-to-moment life. This is what is heard and received so effortlessly. So some of us may feel a natural sense of completion within this practice, but of course, this practice has no bounds or limits. It continues to extend even as we seem to, bring it to a close or feel like we're complete in a meditation or something of the sort. But what we're connecting to is something that's ever present. It never really ends. It never goes away. It's just that our attention sometimes goes other places, or it appears that it has ended and it's stopped in some form. But it's always accessible. It's always something we are desiring to come back to at the foundation of all other desires. Because really, what we're just looking for is this peace and this naturalness, natural knowing of ourselves. But at least for the practicalities of right here with us together, if we feel like we want to move the body or make some sounds or something of the sort, then we're welcome to do so. Some of us may feel called to just continue continue doing as we are. Sorry, I got some audio in the back. If you feel called to share anything on that practice or questions or whatever you'd like, feel free to. Otherwise, we will continue. It's a very potent practice as usual, and I really like this phrase we started with from Bodhidharma, which was, there's no inside, outside, or middle. So where does that leave us? There's no inside, outside, or middle. Where does that leave us? It's the ever-present teaching of the present moment in the numerous forms it's come forth in, over the course of many years, and millennia, but let's say in the more modern times of everyone talking about the present moment and these things. Well, where does the present moment exist? Where is it? How can we grasp it? Can we hold on to it? Can we touch it? Or are we it actually? Is that already who we are? So whoever we are is what's actually this present moment we're looking for, in some place. That's why we can't find it. It's kind of like if the eyes were trying to see itself, that, how would the eyes see themselves? They can only know themselves as an eye, and then that's it. There's nothing else to it. You're not gonna see yourself in the way that you may think you're going to. And I think that's the real paradox with various teachings of spirituality and non-duality and all this. And another point to this practice is we understand that there's an aspect to the practice that is a complete surrender and essentially a doing of nothing. So because especially because of the contrast with our day-to-day life experience, where it seems like every moment of our walking life is some apparent doing. There's all these apparent doings and doings and doings. And so when we actually concentrate, right? So concentration is the doorway to dhyana, meditation, and then samadhi. So concentration is where we are focalizing our attention upon the doing of nothing, which is essentially meditation on some level, and certainly samadhi, where we're surrendering all the sensations, where that momentum of the felt sense of doing can be relaxed for a moment. That's all that's really happening there, is this, like, when you're going about your day and you're kind of like in an adrenaline high and you're just doing all these things. It's like you go through your whole day, and it's almost like your solar plexus is clenched the whole day. Like you feel that nervous system just and so even if you're just taking a break, like you sat down for a moment, you're just taking a break, that same sense is there. But then maybe for a moment you notice it, and then you bring that attention into it and you relax it, and you come into that place where you're basically communicating with yourself that it's okay not to do something right now. And so then it relaxes and you feel this opening, that can happen through your solar plexus, through your heart, even through your throat, right? Sometimes we get that energy in our throat when we're, not sharing what we feel like we want to share to someone, or we're in an argument, or we're in some sort of, back and forth. You feel that throat contraction because the throat chakra is really in an uproar of itself. And so same thing, you take a break and you really relax into it, then you see, and you can feel into all the things that you feel needs to be said to someone, or all the things that you feel you'd like to create, or the energy that wants to move. You want to make some tones or sing or something of the sort. Same thing, right? So there's all these examples I can give in terms of how the body moves into that unconscious contraction, which perpetuates the seeming duality of existence, and how everything is this means to an end, and I got to do this to achieve this, and I got to go here to be this, and my identity is this, so I got to look like this. It's this constant, and it's very practically visceral, like it's very much a physical thing. And so when we bring the attention into those regions of being and really relax into it all and feel the relaxation of the doing of nothing, so that even the idea of, oh, I'm going to sit here and do nothing is also even dissolved. That's when we start to really experience the peace of being, and the peace of the knowing that, oh, I am this present moment already. Like the eyes, I'm already the eyes. I don't need to try and find the eyes. Just like the sun looking for its own light, looking upon the earth and saying, oh, where's this light coming from? Well, these are all similar examples. So the essence of the spiritual journey, on some level, can be perpetuated as this perpetual doing for some illusionary end. And that is very much what is the illusion of enlightenment on a certain level, where there is no final enlightenment, because enlightenment is the representation of the natural essence, like the co-creation of God's source eternally. Like, think about that. Well, you don't have to think about that, but you can feel that, the essence of eternal co-creation, meaning creation cycling through creation and creating and creating and creating eternally forever with no end. So then, the idea of a final enlightenment is kind of silly, right? And that's very much what a lot of the teachings have actually pointed to, but from the vantage point of this apparent separation or feeling of duality with everything, and division with everything, we feel like the savior to that suffering and that confusion is a final enlightenment. And so that's what we seek. And so it's actually helpful to have that as the focus of the goal. But just like any of us have achieved any goal in our life, it usually doesn't end up how we think it's going to, or it's not, when we get there, it's not what we thought it would be, or when we achieve it, it's not really in the same way that we had imagined it would look like or become. And it's it's no different. It's really no different. But with that said, the spiritual process, the scientific spiritual process of bioregenesis, of ascension or ascension, of awakening, and coming back to our true nature or our essential nature, is very much a systematic and scientific process, and it requires the utmost attention and focus and effort and engagement. Of course, as we all know, because we're all here, engaging, right? And so yeah, and then that is what, of course, leads to effortlessness, just as we have explored in this meditation, where we sit, we focus, we bring attention, and that's what reveals the restfulness and the effortlessness. Effort and effortlessness are not separate things. they're not separate things, right? Just like anyone who's developed any sort of skill, any of you who have any skill in anything, you've all developed that through utmost effort in development of that skill, and then over time it feels effortless, because now you have the momentum, and you have the developed skill set, and the knowledge and the applied wisdom, right? When could we ever develop effortlessness in a skill if we didn't put in that effort and time? Talent runs dry at a certain point, of course. So yeah, but I feel like most of us know this. Great explanation. Oh, thanks, Kelsey. Other comments? Oh yeah, the music was nice. Yes. Yeah. So hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if there's any questions or comments on that, but it's an important point, and I reiterated in a live recently about the power of practice and the importance of practice and ongoing practice. Practice can look like many things. In traditional, like more non-dual culture, there's a lot of talk about like moving away from practices and meditations, and this is primarily from the vantage point that if we are doing practices with a very strongly felt sense of separation from this apparent goal of enlightenment, and we have to do these practices to get to some place, if we're holding strongly to that energy, then yes, practice actually can become like a double-edged sword on a certain level, or it can make us, it can almost like have us just stay in the same place where we feel like we're progressing, but no real progress is happening. But in truth, if we're doing practices in the way that they're designed, or if we're engaging them in a truly authentic way, then this isn't really so much a risk, because you're essentially using practices to dissolve the one who thinks they're doing all this practice to get somewhere. And so then it reveals this true nature and this true reality, which brings a whole new definition to what practice is. It becomes very practical, right? It's like someone who's strongly seeking for this idea of final enlightenment it's kind of like everything you do somehow falls into the category of how this is going to bring more enlightenment or not. Like, for instance, if you were to I don't know, you're putting together a table and you wanted to nail the hammer into the table, you're going to on some level consider, like, is this the enlightened way to nail the hammer into the hammer on the nail and put it in the table, right? But when you really realize that the essential God in everything and as everything, you'll just see everything. Things actually return to a very practical measure, right? Like if you're supposed to use the hammer on the nail instead of the screwdriver on the nail, you'll just use the hammer on the nail. And why I'm sharing this is because it relates to certain forms of practice. If you would like to travel out of body somewhere to someplace in the universe, you would need to sit down, close your eyes, and go into a focused practice to do so. It's not about whether that's going to make you more enlightened or not. It's just a very practical thing. Like if I want to travel to this place in the universe, then I'm going to use this particular step-by-step format, or I'm going to intuitively listen to how I'd like to do that. But it's generally going to take a certain practical form. And this is just so simple to me in regards to how we're engaging particular things. And so it's not really about that's only that way of thinking of practicality is only for people post enlightenment, or someone who's enlightened can only think like that. Everyone else should think of everything as how it's going to bring them enlightenment. No, actually, it's, if anything, it's viewing everything in the most simple, practical ways that is actually going to lead to any form of abiding peace or liberation or anything like this, right? Just like all the great teachings of any great masters in various spiritual traditions, they were spoken as descriptions of reality, not something that you do until you get there and then you don't do them anymore, right? What I mean by descriptions of reality, they're inherent aspects to our anatomy. Like if we were to describe the 10 commandments as the 10 fingers and say, oh, I have finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, and finger 10, right? These are realities. Like just because I get enlightened doesn't mean these fingers disappear. So when we speak of, say, the 10 commandments, even though they're not entirely accurate, but if we're just using that as an example, they're descriptions of reality that before, during, after some form of final enlightenment, they're all realities. They're all, they are the realities that do not change. So if we're going to use that as an aspect of how we navigate our path, then it becomes an opportunity for us to consider and focus upon what really does not change in terms of its value to me in this moment, right? In this life, at this time. That could be particular creative expressions, that could be, family, that could be ways of being, right? Like, it's always smart to be patient, right? It's always going to be beautiful to be respectful to others. It's always going to be a practice of meditation in the moment, because we only ever want to be here anyways. Like, we're looking and focusing upon what will always stand the test of time and will not fluctuate and never change, what is always true. So the more we focus upon what is true and what is not, like, sometimes true and other times not true, then this is how we then reveal truth. And if and we could say God is love, but God really is truth, right? Or enlightenment is truth, coming to truth. So in the most practical way, if we just focus and do and act and speak the truth, and we keep focusing and acting and engaging the truth, then, well, what could we possibly expect? Our whole life will just be flooded by truth. And so then, maybe there's going to be some final enlightenment or not, but it doesn't really matter at that point, because we're engaging things in a much more detailed and practical way, rather than the kind of imaginations or, fantasies about what something is going to look like, or, how it's going to become, or something, something of this nature, right? We're basically, because if the teachings of enlightenment are pointing to the fact that this moment is already completely perfect and whole, then everything about this practical moment, in all the mundaneness that it is, like you're drinking your coffee, I don't know, you're sitting on your chair, it's kind of a bit hot, maybe the door, I don't know, the puppy just came in, you got to do a couple things today, you got to go to the post office, I don't know, you got to, give your friend a call, all these things are absolutely enlightened. They're all God in form. So none of those things are magically going to be transformed when some final enlightenment comes. Like, instead of you driving to the post office, you're somehow going to levitate there, or instead of giving a phone call to your friend, you're somehow just going to be in a complete telepathic conversation with them. Like, yeah, sometimes these things may occur, but we're just, again, keeping things so practical and so focused on the mundane, so that we don't need to go anywhere or become anything other than what we are already, for that realization of what people are terming some final enlightenment to come to fruition, to be the reality, to see that. And then, of course, in seeing that, you see that the final enlightenment idea is just, it's just not what the mind thinks it is, at least, right? So yeah, so I hope that hope that makes sense. We start and end right where we already are, and then, really everything is limitless or boundless just from that. Because if we're already liberated where we are, or we can see that we're already liberated where we are, or at least, what I mean by that more so and more directly is, whatever level of liberation we're at here now is actually okay. That's more of what I'm saying, right? Because in so many ways, the typical definitions of liberation and enlightenment on this planet are actually just the beginning. It's really just the beginning of an eternal climb, eternal unfolding, an eternal expansion, an eternal knowing of more and more knowledge, more and more experiences, and you're traveling through the eternity of the cosmos, like, forever, in all its forms and all its potentials and opportunities. So on a certain level, someplace, flying and levitating and doing all that thing will be certainly the case. So that could be determined as a greater expression of liberation than what's possible here on this planet, right? So instead, if we look at it like, well, wherever I'm at now, wherever is happening now, whatever is here now, this is the liberation I know. All right. This is the liberation I know. This is the enlightenment I know. This is the compassion I know. This is the patience I know. This is the respect I know. This is the appreciation I know. You're just acknowledging where you are exactly, with no deception, right? Like no like sugarcoating or glamorizing or fantasizing or grandiosizing is not even a word, but you know what I mean. We're being so honest about exactly where we are, exactly what's happening, exactly what's here. And we're acknowledging exactly how things are appearing and what's here as as um as what it is. There's a deep appreciation for what it is and a deep acknowledgement. And if we'd like to change it, or if we have a preference for how it could be different, not necessarily better, but different, which the mind may perceive as better, then that can be engaged. You can focus upon that in a real practical way, right? A real practical way. Like I said, if you need to nail something in, you need to screw something in, you need to tape something, you need to put something together, you need to do something in your life in a particular way, you can take the very practical actions to engage that, instead of it always coming into this like perpetual litmus test of whether it's going to bring you to enlightenment or not. That's very much that's very much what causes like delay on some level, even though there's no delay. But we can see how that can be very much just confusion. It can create a lot of confusion. Yeah. So hopefully that also makes sense. Great subjects. If there's any questions, feel free. I know someone asked elsewhere, what are my favorite books, my top 5 favorite books? It's a good question. I actually did a video on this many years ago. Not too many years ago. I think it's 2018 or 2017. So that could be viewed. I think my views probably have changed on that now a little bit. I haven't really read that much in the past few years, but I really like the attitudes of responsibility and mastery, from the Kaylonic teachings. That one is very nice, actually, and it's like a really practical look at ethics and morality. Like in my view, it's kind of like a real foundational look at what people are looking for when they look at things like the Eightfold Path or the 10 Commandments, or things like this, right? When they're looking for an ethical or moral framework on how to engage day-to-day life, that book I think is really nice, which I can send to people too if they are looking for that. What other books? The Hao Hu Ching. It's claimed that Lao Tzu wrote it, but they don't know for sure. It could have been some other Chinese Taoist master. But the Hao Hu Ching I found is quite nice. I mean, Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching is also nice too. There's some nice stuff in there. The Gospel of Peace is quite nice. The Essene tradition. These aren't like, I don't have like I'm not saying what my top 5 in any sort of numerical order. I'm just giving some things that are coming to mind. These are more recent things that I've taken a look at. The Nisargadatta Gita by Nisargadatta Maharaj is a great book. It's quite advanced though. So, I mean, all these books are a little bit, but I feel everyone here is well adept to take a look. Yeah, that's what I have for right now. There's a lot of stuff in the Kaylonic traditions that have really thick manuals on all the workshops. I mean, a lot of those are really potent. There's none that really stand out to me right now. Maybe the primer, the Freedom Teachings primer. It's like a good introduction. Voyagers too, I mean, is a classic, but that's a lot about extended Earth history. It's not as much about ascension mechanics, but it outlines the extended Earth history in the most advanced detail than I've ever seen. Someone's commented here on YouTube. In my personal experience, the goal of final alignment can lead the human mind to a sort of neurosis to escape the present moment in a sort of compulsive loop. I appreciate you mentioning it. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm getting to. Definitely. It's kind of like if you relate it to like any sort of mastery, say a sports person or an actor or business person or someone you admire in art, music, right? The mastery comes over a long period of time, and it comes through basically forgetting about mastery altogether, other than the focus upon the engaged practice and involvement with whatever discipline that may be. So it's like someone who becomes a master of a musician, maybe in the early years, the focus is like, oh, I want to become a great, I want to become the best. I want to become, so masterful, et cetera, et cetera. But as you really engage and you start to really experiment and you start to really practice, like deeply involved development of that skill, that just dissolves. It dissolves as you get into more intermediate levels, and then it really dissolves as you get into more advanced levels, because you're embodying it. So you don't ever really think of yourself even as masterful or this or that. I mean, maybe some do, but there's a knowing. So you just do it and you're just engaging it. And that's how then so many people recognize you for it, right? Like how difficult is it for someone to recognize someone that, say, is like not humble about something? So usually someone who's not who's at the most in the intermediate levels, versus someone who, like, you feel the humility off them because they are truly masterful, and then you naturally want to engage them and receive them or their work or whatever it is. It's just a natural mechanism of magnetism, right? It's a natural mechanism of magnetism. So in the same way, with enlightenment is no real different than any skill development. There's no real difference. The principles are the same. It's just a whole higher level of responsibility. The stakes are much higher, and that's why few will attempt it, until nowadays. I mean, now it's becoming much more, which is really cool. The Way of Mastery by the Centino Cristo Foundation. It's been a powerful book for me. Oh, that's cool. Santo Cristo. It's interesting. Yeah, so hopefully that helps reiterate that point. So yeah, thanks for sharing that piece, because yeah, like, again, it just comes back to the actual engagement within our day-to-day life experience. A lot of spiritual seeking can, like, this person had said, Chama has says, like a neurosis of the human mind. We could say that a lot of our periods of seeking at times, like watching a bunch more videos or trying to read about a bunch more things or find a bunch more practices or a bunch more secret knowledge or something, these can be tendencies of avoidance of actually engaging your life and the traumas and the issues and challenges and suffering and the new actions that are required and all of that. It could be a potential avoidance of those things, which are actually where all the progress will happen. Like if there is a desire to engage those things, all the progress in terms of deeper abiding peace or a knowing of more expanded truth in your day-to-day, that will all actually happen, instead of like me as some teacher or some other person telling you that it's going to happen. Like you will literally start to observe it, which again, I'm sure everyone here has already noticed that in their life, right? The only litmus test for how enlightened you've become is the level of peace you're presently abiding in a more consistent period of time. Like, that's all. The more consistent peace that is present is the litmus test for whatever level of realization you think you're getting to, or something like this. Obviously, it's much more advanced than that, and I've described stages and steps of the path from my own view and from other traditions or systems I've come into. But qualitative and even some sort of quantitative measurement of our progress on the path is still very relative, because it's not going to be as accurate as us just coming to see like what is really here, what are we really experiencing, and through the lens of self-honesty. And self-honesty is just honestly looking at what's here, but it can be done through like contemplation. I find journaling can be really helpful. We have to, from my journey, it's been 10, well, it's been longer, it's been 14 years, but 10 years of real intensive focus, like 24/7 almost focus. That is for me, it was always a very scientific approach, even though I didn't love like a lot of the science I came to know, because like I talked about in the live on Instagram the other day. very scientific in the sense that it was constant documentation, constant journaling, constant documentation of all the things that were happening, things I'm noticing, things that are changing, things that are not changing, things that are cycling or not cycling, in terms of behaviors and dreams and desires and circumstances, relationships, challenges. For me, it was such a relentless process, and still is. I still journal regularly. It's not the same as it used to be, but it is on many levels, because there's just the path is so complex, and there's so many aspects to what is unfolding within us. We have to become our own manager of our own life, in every way. And that can become neurotic too. And that's kind of natural because you're finding your balance, but it is helpful. It's very helpful to be in a documented process, contemplation and awareness, right? There was a really good workshop actually we did. It's on Gumroad. I'm going to link it because I talked about this journaling exercise in specific. Let me find it quickly. It's this one here. Awaken to radical self-honesty, responsibility, and relentless compassion for self-healing. Quite a title. I'm going to link it on everywhere, so you guys can go check it out if you want to later. But yeah, that was a great workshop. It's about 2 hours or so. I think there was more actually. I think there was 3 sessions, probably longer. But you guys can check that out if that's of interest. Cool. I'm gonna check if I have anything else specific that I want to focus on. Debbie says, I keep getting images of mountain goats scaling sheer cliffs a bit. Okay. Well, we were watching videos of Montana before you came with the music today. So I don't know. I'm sure there's a bunch of mountain goats up in the mountains in Montana. So maybe you're tapping into the session or something else. I don't know. But that's kind of cool. One thing I kind of addressed in the live the other day, but I've been talking about it for a long time, really. So much of this practice we've done today, and every practice that we tend to do, is a place where we're focusing upon how we're bringing our anatomy, our template, into resolution. Resolution meaning it's come back to its natural homeostasis, its natural balance, and that is what elicits the visceral peace that we feel within our being. This peace, as an emanation within our words, actions, thoughts, engagements with other beings, is a space where we can begin to truly experience this peace within our reality, within our bubble, within what we're engaging in moment to moment. And of course, how this ripples within all of creation is like the scale of how important and powerful this is beyond like our wildest imagination. But even if we were just to look at our own individual life and to see and feel what it feels like to have our relations in peace and in balance, it's such a beautiful thing, because it's the most practical way we actually viscerally feel a peacefulness and a joyfulness and an expansion on a consistent in a consistent way, right? You can realize some stage of nothingness, or realize emptiness, or realize certain aspects to the path, or certain come on very advanced levels of the path, but still not necessarily feel an expanded joyfulness, an expanded peacefulness within your being, and specifically within your physical anatomy, right? It's not as much of a conversation, especially in non-dual circles, about feeling the visceral nature of this peacefulness and joyfulness and well-being, like joyfulness translated into well-being in the body on a consistent level. This isn't as much a conversation because on some level it's kind of obvious that some aspect of that will be felt, but at least in my experience, it only continues to expand and get greater and greater and more profound, where and not profound in the sense that you're just blissed out. I mean, sometimes you're in a bliss paralysis and you don't want to move and do anything, but in the sense that it can be an aspect of your walking reality, where going around your motions and movements and days, feeling this expansion and feeling this this radiance. That's really what it is. This in my experience at least is only a product. I mean, it's a product of some various aspects to cleansing out the body so that these currents of energy can actually come into dimensions 3, 2, and 1. Right. So we've gone into that level 1 course a lot with the cleansing and detoxification and the emotional healing and mental healing, because you're clearing out all of it, and it's all giving more space and room for the higher frequencies to actually embody into this dimensional or this density, right? It's a very important and practical thing. But the other way in which this is interwoven with this whole conversation is in the nature of our relations. And that's why I recommended the attitudes of mastery and responsibility, or the working with the 12 virtues or 13 virtues, technically 15, but 13 if we're working with the first version of them, from the Kahlonic science and the freedom teachings work, because those virtues, just like all ethical expressions, are going to bring better relationships, better relations and engagements with people and everything in our holographic, density 1 universe or reality world. So this, when we're coming into life and recognizing, okay, we've realized this piece, but so now how does this piece emanate and ripple ever so gently within all of our relations? So we're not rocking the boat too strongly in any regard within any of our relations. We're respecting the free will of other beings, and we're really honoring this peace and this middle path more than everything. Like we addressed this in the live the other day, where I was talking about worldly trends right now, where all these protests and topics of division are arising because we're getting more humble to what matters. And as we get humbled collectively to what matters, we have stronger and stronger views, or we get into stronger and stronger conversations with other beings, because there's a lot of emotion that is associated with basic food, health of the planet, ability to choose what you do with your body, basic living, and that related with money and the economy right now. These are all really important subjects and topics that are related to basic well-being and basic survival for all of us, every being included. So naturally, for some more than others, there's going to be more stronger emotions and views, not necessarily in relation to even the view on the topic, because I think we can agree for the most part on a lot of these topics once the emotion settles down, right? So if we can just understand that as the responsibility of ourselves when we're interacting with everyone, in knowing that peace is more important than being right or having the correct view, or all of that. I mean, correct view is important, but it's secondary to peace. And correct view on the foundation of peace is natural. Like when you're in a peaceful mood, you naturally want to pet the dog instead of kick it. So you don't even need to really focus on correct view, because that is a natural expression. So if we're focused on keeping the peace, meaning we've come to embody this peace within our own being, and then in the interactions that we come across, especially on some of these topics, the peacefulness can be an emanation that dissolves the initial layers of division, so that at least at the basis, peaceful debate can occur, right? Peaceful debate is a million times better than well, certainly war, or like all the hatred and all the projecting that happens from side to side on all of these topics. And so, I mean, this is a deep running conditioning within our collective nature that we've come to deep healing with. And so as that occurs, for some of us, we can be, we can hold space in our own individual life. We don't need to get involved in big conversations or on big stages, or, but just in the simple interactions we come across, because these topics are brought up, at the dinner table, they're brought up on a coffee date, they're brought up on Tinder or something. I don't know, like you're dating someone, it's brought up everywhere. So if we're not able to rest in this peacefulness, naturally we will inevitably, start to dance with divisive behavior or conversations or interactions, opinions, etc. So what's more practical than coming to realize this now and engage this piece in a way where we are viscerally feeling that more often than not? Because like we're a bit tired, or say we ate too much and then we're feeling a bit lethargic, or we haven't exercised and moved our body enough in a week or two, and then we start getting a bit cranky. Well, how does that affect our unconscious responses, or how does that trigger certain traumas to elicit unconscious responses in terms of interaction with other beings or conversations, or especially when we come into some of these charged topics. So we have to take care of all the levels of ourselves so that we can actually stay grounded in the turbulence of the storm of whatever's passing, which is insert whatever new trend, like new trendy topic, or new charged topic, or new protest, or new whatever. So in this sense, we actually come back into the world of the mundane and the mainstream. We're not afraid of CNN, and we're not afraid of the mainstream conversations, because we understand they're very much intertwined and a part of our own being, because we're going to come in contact with them in some form, some much less than others, because when we're not so addicted to mainstream trending and topics and the emotions of it, then yeah, we tend to not necessarily need to be in the conversations as much, but we will come in contact with them at some point. So it's important to be able to walk the talk, in terms of that, especially as the energies and the charges of these topics continue to get more and more heightened. And I don't see that stopping, at least for the immediate future. So yeah, it becomes very practical, in terms of how we navigate things. Cool. That was the next topic. Yeah, I feel that's that does cover a lot of the things I had jotted a few notes on to address and bring into practical consideration. We're in a bit of a chill period. I mentioned that on the live, we're in a bit of a chill period now, where the charges of topics they've kind of calmed a bit. So we may see like things start to pick up in the fall towards the winter time, towards 2023 for certain. But we can ride that wave and enjoy a bit of enjoyment time. Like I feel people are really enjoying themselves this summer more than ever, which is nice to see. And then it's interesting, right? When we're in the space of enjoyment, we actually more authentically engage certain topics of knowledge and study and practice. When we're in the heat of, like during COVID, let's say, when there was a lot of charges on a lot of things, there's at times where we're forced into like some sort of seeking or some sort of engagement on knowledge, but there runs a greater risk for things to be a little less authentic in that way, because a lot of times it's charged from an emotional response. And that's why conspiracy topics get really popular in those periods, and people just want to like mainly focus on a lot of that, even as there's more advanced stages of development, those topics still become like the real core cloud. And although there's a lot of legitimacy in those topics, they also can become distracting, right? Inevitably they become distracting, because the emotional response in a time of crisis will lean more towards that, rather than like abiding in the peace of your being through simple meditation and drinking little teas. So like although that will probably elicit more results, you do need both on some level. You need to be aware, and you also foundationally need to be at peace, or don't need to, but it would be be nice if that was the case, right? So when we're in this place where there's more expansion and joyfulness, people feel more at ease to explore some of these topics with more of a consideration, rather than like those trauma responses or the survival responses that get triggered when the cloud of those trends start to creep over. And then we go a couple of weeks where everyone's talking about it, everyone's like going, and then it kind of calms down, and then we're able to see what is actually true, right? And that's how it always is. I mean, that's how it is in our individual life, right? Just waiting out the emotional waves. Yeah. All right. Well, that feels good. I mean, what time is it? 1:10. I mean, yeah, it's I said 90 minutes. with including the music and all that. So so that's cool. I'm really happy we were able to do this again. I mean, these are my favorite sessions to run. Not much of an agenda other than just sit here and see what comes, and they feel really nice. With that said, we are going to be doing another level 1, level 2 program coming up soon. Those who want to detox physical body or go into more emotional and shadow work stuff. What I'm actually moving towards the direction of is having more of an academy with more of a membership. So you guys have access to all the stuff. You can do it all at your own time and then basically cancel whenever you want. But there'll be like live stuff happening. And I think that's going to be a better structure. So I've intended that for many years, but now there's enough video content available that I feel I feel more aligned with something like this. So we'll see how that unfolds. But yeah, for now, if you guys want to contribute for today, then here I'll link the donation links. Lots of love to those who already sent something. That's always appreciated. And yeah, you're welcome, AC. Good to see you again. Well, at least have you here. That feels nice. I'll announce when the next one is. Just stay on social or on the email. It's always on the email list too, but they are kind of spontaneous. Usually it's like day or two before I'll usually get the call. Yep. I'll leave it if there's any other comments or questions or anything, but I feel good with this. Lots of love to all of you. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and chat soon. Bye now.